Someone in the comments section asked me to make a build similar to the Raider build that I made a while back that did really well. Essentially, it was creating the Immortal Raider. Now, prior to this, I didn't really see anyone making Raider videos, mostly because people didn't really understand how he worked. Or at least, the people that did understand how he worked didn't really show anyone. Anyway, bullshittery aside, someone asked me to make a build similar for the Undertaker, an Immortal Undertaker. Now, whilst Raider and the Guardian are the absolute guys for this kind of build, you can make it work with pretty much every Nightfarer. Now, I'm going to go through damage negations and effective HP because it's really important that you understand this first before jumping into the next stage of the process. Now, I will show you for the Undertaker, but I'll also show you for a couple of other characters to show you that it's not just based and stuck to a melee tank character. You can actually make it work with basically anyone, even casters you can make it work. So let's get into it. So first of all, we really need to understand what makes them immortal, and of course they're not really immortal. Well, I mean, unless you're depth free and you have the perfect run, but they're close enough to being immortal. Now, to do this, we need some very specific weapon passives alongside some very specific relics. We also need to understand something called effective HP. Now, I could sit here and try and explain it to you, which would probably take about 20 minutes to actually get right deep down into it. What I will do instead, to save the video getting very convoluted, I'll show you this clip from someone who's very good at this stuff, Alpha Seagull, and then I will link the video to his channels where you can watch it in detail. But I will give you essentially a very easy breakdown to understand on what it actually is.
Once you start thinking about negation in terms of effective health, all the numbers are actually stronger than they look. 10 negation actually gives you an 11.1% boost to effective health. 20 gives 25%, 30 gives 43%, etc. So not only is negation still stacking the same way every other boost stacks, but the numbers are actually stronger than they look. But Seagull, wouldn't that mean tanking is OP? Well, yeah, that's exactly what it means. Tanking is OP. Let Me Tank Him has the right idea here. Go with a purely defensive playstyle and there's a whole lot of bosses you can just deal with. I mean, shields alone are already pretty strong, but when you mix in high negation and health, it becomes almost impossible to actually die. If you can't die and the boss doesn't heal itself like Melania, how do you think the fight's gonna end? I thought so.
So, hopefully Alpha Seagull doesn't mind me showing you that clip. I will link the video so you can go and watch that video because it is really interesting to understand about how effective HP works and how it works with damage negation and how essentially you can't be killed if you have the right setup. But if you're like me and you need it explained to you like a 3-year-old, let me do that for you. Let's say you have 10 Zelda hearts. The boss hits you for 5 hearts at a time. It's going to take 2 hits to kill you. Now you have 10 Zelda hearts. The boss still hits for 5 hearts at a time, but you have a 50% damage negation. It now takes the boss 4 hits to kill you. If you have 10 Zelda hearts and the boss hits you for 5 at a time, but you have 75% negation, it now takes the boss 8 hits to kill you. So if it now takes 8 hits to kill you, you essentially have 4 times the effective health than you did without the damage negation. And remember, that's without healing, which obviously also makes your effective health larger, because every time you take damage, you bring a portion of that damage back by healing, which essentially means it takes longer to kill you, effective HP becomes larger. Now hopefully I've explained that simple enough. It's actually quite difficult to understand, but once you understand it, the principle is actually quite simple. So with that out of the way, let's talk about how your effective health being larger will keep you immortal. When you get a damage negation, you want to think of how much of the attack is being blocked. So for that, we turn the damage negation into a decimal. So for 36% damage negation, it would be a 0.64, which means you're blocking 36% of the damage and you're allowing through 64% of the attack. Which is a big reason why damage negation is better for you for survivability than health, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So when you have multiple negations, you don't just multiply all the numbers together, so like a 36 and a 40 and a 28 would be 104%, because that would break the game and you would actually not be able to take damage. So you work out the attack you've allowed through. So for the 36 we have a 0.64, for the 40 we have a 0.6, and then for the 28% we have a 0.28. So when the attack comes in, let's say the attack's 1500, first of all you would multiply it by 0.64, which would give you the new number, then you would multiply it by 0.6, which would give you a new number, and then you would multiply it by 0.72. And that is how the multiplicative damage negations work for an attack. So let's say the attack is going to do 1500 without any damage negation, and you have 1500 health. You are going to be one shot. But if you have 1000 health, with the negations we've gone through, the attack now only does 414 damage, which of course is not going to one-shot you even though you have less HP than the attack of the damage the boss is doing. Again, confusing, I know, but hopefully it makes sense. And now, how do we put that into practice? Well, let's discuss the Undertaker first, because that's what the initial commenter asked for. Basically, there are specific negation types that work extremely well for each character. For the Guardian and the Executor, you have successful guards ups damage negation. For Raider, you have taken damage boost damage negation. And for casters, you have damage negation when casting. So there's a reason why all of these are set for specific roles. It's because not all of them are useful for every Nightfarer. So the first thing we have to do is pick the correct negation for the right Nightfarer. Now, of course, damage negation at full works for every Nightfarer, but it obviously does fall off for the Raider and the Guardian. But for the Undertaker, it works, but it's not entirely what we need to make her immortal. So, my Undertaker base relics has 1040 vigor. The relics I have on this build are an improved physical negation, which gives me a 10% negation, improved physical negation +1, which gives me a 10.5%, and then I have 2 improved physical negations +2, which give me a 12% negation each. Now, remember, all buffs in Nightreign are multiplicative, so it's not 45%, well, 44.5%. We need to work out each negation separately. So, for the 10.5, we would be allowing in 0.895. For the 10, we would be allowing in 0.9. And then for the 12, we would be allowing in 0.88. Now, each one of these will be taken off the damage separately. So again, let's use the 1500 damage as the base number. We would take 0.895. There'll be a new number. We would take 0.88, 0.88, and then 0.90. And essentially, you have the final number of the damage you're allowing through. Now, the negations you actually want are going to be the ones that you're finding in the expedition, but the negations on your relics are actually really helpful for early game. And everyone knows if you have a really good early game, the later part of the expedition is going to be easy, or it's going to be a lot easier. You know, you want to snowball, make yourself strong early, and the rest of the expedition will be a piece of cake. For example, if we take a base Undertaker with no negation relics, we throw her in at level 15 against a red Depth 5 Barbarian Hunter, this is what happens. Now, if we do the same again, but with the negation relics I have mentioned, as you can see, you can tank a hit. Now, let's add in some negation passives you would find in an expedition. And lo and behold, you become immortal, because what you have is a set of negation buffs, I guess we'll call them. They're all multiplicative, so every time that damage comes in, that damage is being reduced by each one of these larger negations, which essentially means that the Barbarian Hunter is now tickling you. And the reason for that is your effective HP is now so large that the Barbarian Hunter can't remove your HP before you kill the Barbarian Hunter. So, as you can see, with the right passives, you do effectively become immortal. Now, remember, you can still heal, which makes your effective HP even larger, thus adding to your immortality. Now, I know it seems quite over the top to call it immortal, but if you have 6 or 7 heals with all those negation passives, no, stop it, 6 or 7. If you have all those negation passives, and you know, a couple of dormant power with physical negation or affinity negations, you can see how it will snowball and you will basically become immortal. Earlier I mentioned this doesn't just stop at melee tanks. I guess we'll call it melee tanks. You can also make this happen with squishy casters. Just watch this Recluse clip. This is a Depth 5 Dreadlord. Now, of course, this playstyle is going to be completely different how you would normally play a caster, and it's obviously going to be very scary because you are generally just going to spam your sorcery, which you do anyway, but this time you're not going to be bothered about taking attacks. In fact, you kind of want to be attacked whilst you're spamming your sorcery. Now, sure, you don't have the poise to withstand most attacks, so you're still going to need to strategically work out when to attack, so there is that to take into consideration. But as you can see, Depth 5 Recluse I was tanking all the attacks while still getting damage off. Granted, I'm losing out on a lot of damage because I haven't got attack power-up passives, so there is also that to take into consideration, but you can see the point I'm trying to make. And it's also the same for someone like the Guardian, except for the Guardian actually can become immortal. Now, for those of you who play the Guardian, you know that Gladius is a massive counter to the Guardian because Gladius does a shit ton of affinity damage. But if you stack the right passives, stack the right damage negations, have a pretty decent shield, and you can see quickly how easy it becomes to just be a tank. Now, of course, again, you're losing out in damage, but, you know, the Guardian doesn't really do damage anyway. But that's another topic we'll discuss another time. But as you can see here, I can pretty much take every one of Gladius's attacks, and I'm not even concerned about my health. I don't even have a weapon, I just have my shield. That's because if you stack in the right damage negations, you are being tickled by the boss, and your effective HP is so large that Gladius can't kill you before you're going to kill Gladius. Now again, I'm being very extreme with this, but as you can see, I am just letting Gladius beat the shit out of me without healing, and I'm surviving everything. And again, this is a depth 5 Everdark Gladius. Now, of course, without healing, eventually you are going to die because you are still going to need to heal in specific scenarios like here. I should have held there. If I would have carried on healing, he still wouldn't have been able to kill me. But hopefully you get the point I'm trying to make. Stack the right negation passives. What? Negation? Stack the right negation passives and you will essentially become immortal. Make your health bar extremely big by stacking negation passives, and that way the boss can't kill you. Because that's the goal, right? The aim is kill the boss before it kills you. The boss can't kill you if it can't do more damage than the health you have. Now, the last thing I have to say on the matter is being able to survive is obviously incredible. But what actually helps your team is being able to do damage. So you do need to find a middle ground. Don't just stack damage negation so you can survive everything whilst doing 12 damage, because the longer you're in the boss fight, the higher chance of mistakes happening, which can lead to losses quite easy. I had a run the other day. It was me playing the Undertaker, there was a Guardian, and there was an Executor. Now, the Executor left mid-expedition, to no surprise. It was myself and the Guardian left, and I could not find a single decent weapon. And it was on the Great Hollow map, which is incredibly rare. Anyway, my Guardian was absolutely goated, like the best tank you will ever see. Indestructible. One mistake and the expedition was over. Now, the loss was 100% my fault, just not being on the ball, and the fight took so long because the Guardian, although they could survive everything, it was a depth 5 Heolster, and I was the only one doing damage, and my damage was awful just because I could not find a decent weapon. So, because the fight took so long and my damage was not great and the Guardian was hardly doing any damage, essentially it just led to mistakes and we both died. So, you absolutely need a middle ground, stacking damage negation and also stacking damage passives. So, gamers, there isn't really much else to go over. Hopefully you've taken something from this and hopefully you understand a little more on how to make your character essentially immortal or close enough. Now, if you like the video, help a brother out and drop a like, comment, subscribe, all that cheesy stuff. I do appreciate it massively. And as always, brothers, stay safe, catch you on the next one. Big love, peace.